Short cruises, are they a good time or are they a total waste of time? Let's discuss. Hi, I'm Melissa, a university professor who loves to cruise and who loves to talk ship. In this episode of my Cruise Pod, we're diving into the art of making the most out of a short cruise. Whether you've booked a quick weekend getaway or a 4-night escape, short cruises, they pack a lot of punch in a short period of time. And with the right approach, you can maximize every moment. So let's set sail with some strategies. It just so happens that I just returned home myself from a very short cruise. Now, personally, I do prefer the longer ones. I feel like you get more bang for your buck. It really maximizes your travel time. But sometimes, because of limited time off or other restrictions, you have no choice but to do a short sailing. And some people genuinely prefer short sailings. So let's talk first about why short cruises are unique. Short cruises, typically lasting 2 to 5 nights, they're perfect for first timers. They're perfect for that spontaneous getaway, which is what mine was, or for someone that just needs to get away for a quick dose of sun and sea. However, with these shorter durations, you need to plan strategically to make sure that you're maximizing your time on the ship and everything that your ports of call have to offer. Because unlike longer cruises, there's less time to kind of kick back and relax. There's less time to explore and get settled. But with these tips, you'll feel like you've had a full vacation. First is to plan ahead and prioritize. Time is of the essence on a short cruise, so preparation is key. The first thing you need to make sure you do is do your research. Take time to pull up your ship's deck plan. If you've never sailed that ship before, this is especially important. That way, you can familiarize yourself in advance with the ship's layout, with dining options and activities before you ever step foot on the ship. Most of the cruise lines have apps that allow you to book shows, specialty dining, and excursions in advance. Not all of them do. Some of them make you wait until you're on board to see that stuff. But if you're sailing on a cruise line that provides that information in advance, take advantage of these tools to avoid wasting time and by planning out your days in advance. I will tell you with the ship layout, this is really important, especially if you're sailing on a big cruise ship. Last summer, I took a 2-week Baltic cruise, and it wasn't even a particularly big cruise ship. And I thought that I had explored and wandered and found every area of this ship. And what do you know? The second to the last day, I stumbled upon this gorgeous, stunning cruise ship library. Literally the best library I've ever seen on a cruise ship. By the way, it was Holland America Line's Zwieterdam ship. So if you love libraries, cruise on this ship. And I wish I had known about it earlier, but I just somehow never ventured into that area and I completely missed it. So take advantage of looking at the ship's deck plan, the layout, really kind of study that in advance so you don't miss out on hidden gems like that and you don't waste your time wandering around aimlessly. Another thing that's really important is to look up your ports of call to decide what you want to do on those port days. This is really important on those short cruises because in my case, for example, it was such a short cruise, we only had one port day. So luckily it's Nassau. I've been there a million times. I already know exactly where to go and what to do. But if it's your only time off the ship and it's your only port of call, you probably want to maximize that time. So doing some research and planning in advance is really helpful to do that instead of just relying on getting off the ship and wandering around and exploring aimlessly. By the way, pro tip, I have fantastic free port guides for most Caribbean ports of call and then some on my website, profmelissa.com. So that's a great place to research your ports of call in advance. Another thing is to board early. Now, normally, I'm not the kind of person that's clamoring to get on a cruise ship first thing. I'm fine rolling on at 2, 3 o'clock because I don't always like to wait for my luggage and I want to get right in my stateroom and unpack and get settled. But time is of the essence on these shorter cruises, so you might want to maximize your time by boarding early. This means not just arriving at the cruise terminal as early as possible on embarkation day, but making sure that you are checking in and selecting a boarding time arrival window in advance of your cruise. Now, some cruise lines like Princess, they have open boarding, so just show up as early as possible and get on as soon as you can. But a lot of other cruise lines like Carnival require that you check in usually 14 to 30 days in advance of your cruise, and you want to make sure that you have that date on your calendar. So then right at midnight Eastern time when check-in opens and you select that arrival time, you can get that coveted early morning slot. This gives you a head start to explore the ship, grab lunch, and even snag prime spots by the pool, which can get crowded on embarkation day. Every hour counts. Another is to set priorities. You need to ask yourself, what's important to me? Is it relaxing by the pool and just chilling? In which case, maybe you don't do the planning. You just want to float around and sleep and rest and nap and read. and enjoy the pool? Or is it enjoying gourmet meals, exploring every element you can at every port? So focus on these priorities to avoid feeling rushed or overwhelmed. Tip 2, pack smart for the occasion. Packing for a short cruise is an art in itself. Now, it's great because you don't need as much stuff, but it is easy to find yourself overpacking. My tip is to go for carry-on only. I'm on team never check a bag. I will carry on even for an 11 or 12-day cruise, but I always carry on for short cruises. So for short cruises, I recommend skipping the checked luggage. Carrying on your bags, both the airline if you fly to and from your port, and carrying on your bags during embarkation and disembarkation from the ship generally allows you to get on and off the ship faster and to have more access to your stuff. So carrying on and packing light is really helpful. Another recommendation is to pack versatile clothing. Bring outfits that can transition from day to night with few accessories. For example, a sundress or khaki pants or a kind of a tropical button-up for most cruise lines can work for casual daytime wear and also dinner in the main dining room or the MDR. Most cruise lines will only have one elegant night if it's a shorter cruise, so that really cuts down on formal wear that takes up a lot more space in your luggage. If you're pressed for space in your luggage too, you can always skip elegant night. You don't have to get all dressed up, and that will save you some space in your luggage. Next is don't forget the essentials. Make sure you pack your swimwear, your sunscreen, your comfortable shoes for exploring ports. And don't be afraid to repeat your outfits. If you wear the same dress 2 nights in the main dining room, trust me, no one's gonna remember and nobody is gonna care. Tip number 3, take advantage of embarkation day. Embarkation day, that's the day you get on the ship, that sets the tone for your cruise, so make it count. My first recommendation, this doesn't always apply, but is to skip the buffet. I love it when cruise ships have embarkation day brunch in the main dining room, and I'll skip the crowded, chaotic buffet and I will go there instead for a quieter, more relaxed lunch. Another is to explore the ship. Hopefully you checked out your deck plan in advance and you also scouted out where your room is located so you kind of understand how to get around. But this is the time to get your bearings. Find the Lido deck, locate the bars, check out the entertainment venues, figure out where the main dining room for dinner is or for embarkation day brunch. Knowing where everything is will save you time later and avoid the frustration of wandering around lost aimlessly. Another is to book last-minute extras. Some reservations, like onboard spa treatments or specialty dining, they may still be available once you board. So stop by the concierge or the excursions desk or use the cruise line app to make sure you book anything that you missed pre-cruise. Tip number 4, make the most of your port visits. Most short cruises have very few ports of call and they're usually close to the departure port. So if you're cruising out of Florida, you're probably going to visit Nassau or other Bahamas locations. So make sure, again, you maximize your time on shore. That includes researching in advance, like those port guides on my website, profmelissa.com. But another recommendation is to stick to close attractions. This means choosing excursions or activities that are close to the port so you avoid those really long travel times. So I've taken some excursions before. For example, I went to Damahagua Falls in Puerto Plata, and it was probably an hour plus slightly from the cruise terminal to the site. And I also, on another visit there, did Monkey Land, and that was about 2 hours each way. So that ate up a lot of time on a precious port day, which is no big deal if you're on an itinerary that has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plus ports of call. But if you only have one, you probably want to make that time count and you don't want to spend it on a bus. The other is to skip the excursion lines. If you're comfortable exploring independently and not booking a cruise line excursion, consider doing an independent excursion. That's usually how I roll about 90% of the time. Just make sure you don't miss that return to ship time. Research local attractions, get recommendations from trusted cruise experts, hop in a taxi, book a private driver, or even use Uber if it's available in that cruise port city to save time and money. And always watch the clock. Be mindful of that ship's departure time. On a short cruise, it can be tempting to pack as much as you can in one short port of call visit. And so you don't want to try to overdo it and then miss the return to ship time and potentially miss the ship. Tip number 5, savor every moment on board. One of the best parts of a short cruise is the ability to just jump right into the fun. If you're short on time, skip the MDR. I love the MDR. I tend to love that sit down, put on nicer clothes, have a seated meal, have someone serve you, it's on a plate, it's nice, but that's a slow process. It can take upwards of 2 hours for a full dinner in the main dining room or the MDR. So if you really want to maximize your time, and not eat into opportunities to go see shows or play in the casino or whatever it is you want to do, skip the MDR and head to the buffet instead. You'll get a much faster experience. Another is to catch the shows. Many cruise lines offer Broadway-style productions, comedy acts, live music. Royal Caribbean does some fancy aqua theater stuff on their bigger ships. So check the daily schedule and make it a point to catch at least one performance. On the longer itineraries, those longer sailings, they'll often repeat performances, but that's not the case generally on these shorter sailings. So if there's a specific show that you want to see, make sure you scout that out in advance because it might only be offered on maybe the first or second night. You don't want to miss it. Another is to stay active. Short cruises often have action-packed schedules. That might be trivia, poolside contests, karaoke, whatever it is, they usually have pretty action-oriented schedules. Which leads me though to tip number 6. Don't overdo it. It is tempting to try to do everything, especially when you're on a compressed schedule. But don't forget to take time to relax because that's one of the beautiful things about cruising. One strategy is to avoid overbooking yourself. Yeah, it's important to kind of research and to consider what you're going to do in advance, but you have to accept the fact that on a short cruise, you're just not going to have time to do everything, and that's okay. For example, one of my favorite things when I cruise, especially on Carnival, is to see a comedy show. And on this really short, last-minute, long weekend getaway, I did not have time to see a comedy show and do everything else I wanted to do. So I had to sacrifice that and cut that, and that's okay. It's important to pick a few activities or excursions that genuinely excite you and just let the rest go. Don't feel like you're not getting your money's worth if you can't do everything, because you literally can't do everything. Also, take a breather. Whether it's a nap in a deck chair on a quiet hidden deck, quiet time on your balcony if you have one, or just chilling by the pool, carve out moments to recharge. Because these short cruises, they should feel like a getaway, not a marathon. You probably want to come home rested, not exhausted. So short cruises, they might fly by, but with a little planning and the right mindset and really understanding what's important to you and how you want to vibe, it can be just as memorable and fulfilling as a longer voyage. The key is to prioritize what matters most to you and to embrace every moment. So I don't know, what are your thoughts? Are you like my best friend? She hates short cruises. She will not take a cruise less than 7 days. Or are you like me, which I'm open to short cruises if the time is right, but I only do them under certain circumstances. I want to know, what are your best tips for making the most of a short cruise? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this information helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and visit my website, profmelissa.com, for those free port guides, cruise tips, and everything in between.